Welcome to Community Closeups, a webinar series highlighting the unique and talented individuals in our community. As always, joining me, my good friend and co-host, David Warner. Dave, how are you?
Bo, doing good. Excited for all the things that are coming up here soon. Tons of events. Our community is fantastic, so we're going to have a lot of fun at upcoming events. Summit is right around the corner. Can't wait for that. And speaking of Summit, we have with us today an Office Development MVP from Valo Intranet, Sébastien Levert. Seb, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing awesome. Really good here. So,
thanks for joining us. Obviously, this community or this webinar is about introducing us as people to the community. So why don't you tell everybody in the community a little bit about yourself, where you're from, family, some of that stuff.
Yeah, so my name, first, let's start with the name. Everybody says Seb or Sebastian or whatever, but actually my name is not Sebastian. My name is, I'm going to say it in French because I'm French-Canadian, native French-Canadian, Sébastien Levert, which means Sebastian. In the end, I'm from Montreal, Canada. I live here with my lovely wife, Magali, and I've been in Montreal forever, actually. I born and raised, live on the island of Montreal with everything that it means, including right now, like 3 feet of snow since yesterday. So used to the north, used to the I would say probably the best maple syrup in the world, the one from Quebec. And I'd be really excited to be here today. Can't wait to chat a little bit more on the personal side.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, anybody that's watching may have noticed Seb is a huge hockey fan. So I am as well. So I got on one of my All-Star jerseys for him, and he's got on his Canadiens jersey, so awesome. Let's start out there, actually, just because I love hockey, and I know you love hockey. How did you get into hockey? You play hockey, I think, right?
Yep. So I got into hockey. I think I wore my first skates at like 1.5 years old. My dad used to do a rink in my backyard, and I started to play there. Like I had a chair. I was trying to
I remember that.
to skate and everything. And that was like until I know 4 years old or something. So we have a hockey program here for really young kids. Now it's actually transitioned to, I don't know, like I'm from Canada, so everybody knows about Tim Hortons, the coffee thingy, but they actually have a hockey program called the Timbits. And I used to be in that really young in that program. Which brought me to start playing for real with a stick and a puck and that kind of stuff. And I played until I was 13 years old. I wouldn't say professionally, but in organized hockey with my town. I had a small team. We were the best. We were winning everything. I used to be like a right winger, so I'm like a power forward playing on the right wing. And even still today, I still play 2 or 3 times a week, indoor, on the ice. Still a huge hockey fan, huge fantasy hockey fan also. I'm winning my pool right now. I traded Connor McDavid yesterday. Can you imagine that? I did that, which is, why would you do that? But he's injured, so I had to do something. But yeah, big hockey fan. I was at the NHL, at an NHL game 2 weeks ago with our team. Went to see Washington against Montreal, and the week after, actually, I was in Europe with my team in Finland, and went to see a elite hockey, like a Finnish elite hockey league game. Was awesome, super slow, but really awesome, like really different, but another type of game. I'm into hockey, I love it.
Yeah, and that was some of the team's first time, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. A bunch of people were there for the first time. I had to explain the sport a little bit to some of the folks over there, so it was cool.
And so, speaking of hockey, you also said your favorite movie could be the Mighty Ducks.
Oh my God! Yes,
yes. One of the all-time best hockey teams to ever play. Who is your favorite player from the Ducks? The true Mighty Ducks film.
The true Mighty Ducks films. I have 2 choices there. It's either Adam Banks or Charlie Conway. It's hard to tell. Well, I think the way Adam Adam Banks like made this comeback when he broke his wrist, and he's coming back like, oh look, coach, I can actually play, and then he goes play. This movie when I was young, was like the goal of literally any hockey player. I want to play with these kind of teams and have like that amount of success, especially at the end. And I was like 8 or 10 years old, and I was crying like a baby when I was watching that movie because they're winning at the end. It was so hard to get there. But even today, when I still watch the movie sometimes, like I still have that small tear coming down. Like that reminds me good, like some really, really, really good memories of that. But yeah, definitely Adam Banks.
Now, you also had mentioned, we know you went to Japan just last year. We could talk about that in a moment, but you also mentioned your favorite place to visit. You said you just don't get bored of New York City. And that's also one of my favorite cities in the world. So I was curious what it is that you love about the city. What do you not get bored with?
I don't get bored with just walking in the city. When we go there, we just probably like walk 30 to 40K a day when we go there, and we walk everything. We just say, I don't even take the subway. I just walk. I remember being like at the World Trade Center Memorial and walk all the way like to the end of Central Park. Yeah, that's a long walk. Like that is a long walk. That's a really decent walk. But the cool thing about New York is every like 3 blocks is a new city. There's a new vibe. It's new people. It's a new culture all the time. So for me, it's just like the city that never sleeps, but it's more than that. It's to go and kind of grab everything you can from that city every single time. 3 years, probably 3 years ago, we did for the first time the High Line. I don't know if you've ever done the High Line, an old train tracks that they transform into like an urban park or something, and it's also pretty massive, like I don't know, 2 miles, 3 miles long, and you're literally in a park in the middle of super high-end apartments. And it really looks beautiful, and you meet a bunch of people, lots of like street food in there. Food in New York, oh my god! But yeah, it's for me, it's a city that I'll never get bored, and for us, it's literally next door.
Very
so it's
close,
like a 5-hour drive from Montreal to New York. You get there, you enjoy your stay, and you just come back at the end of the weekend. So for a 3-day weekend, perfect place to go. Way better than Boston, especially because their hockey team is not thing I like. But yeah, amazing stuff happening in New York. Yeah.
Cool. And you referenced the food. So you said in New Zealand, it wasn't the food was not what it was about for you. It was about the location and the scene and everything. But you just mentioned in New York, food is off the shelf, right? Because there's so many. Is there a favorite type or a favorite like guilty pleasure for New York, or any of the above?
Definitely. I don't remember the name.
Chinatown.
Well, Chinatown is an amazing place for like weird and sketchy food. Like you don't know what you're eating, but it's good. But for me, it's just underneath the Brooklyn Bridge, in all those pizza places that are right in there. You can I could definitely just take an Airbnb and just eat. I just go back, take a nap, go back out, another pizza or pastas over there. I'm a big Italian lover, like Italian food lover. So anything that we can do there is amazing. So for me, definitely all the like New York Italian type of food is just great. One of the best or weirdest, I don't know how to say this, is the rainbow donuts. I don't know if you ever had that. That's,
that I have.
Or no, not rainbow donuts, rainbow bagels. So it's literally bagel that looks like that is the color of a rainbow. Very New York with like the cream cheese and everything. But it's amazing. It's in Brooklyn. It's amazing.
First of all, it's schmear. It's not cream cheese.
So what? Let's say that again.
Schmear. It's not cream cheese.
Okay.
So I feel that same way about Montreal because I grew up not far from Montreal, and I always loved going up to the Expos games. But the food culture there is so different than in many places, most places in the U.S. But I have to ask, for poutine, what is the top 2 poutine places you would recommend for people traveling to Montreal?
Great question.
Top 2. That's yeah. So there's one for the actual quality of the poutine, and there's one for the experience, or 3 for a third one for the experience. So for the less poutine version of poutine, during the summer there are a bunch of like street food or food trucks around the city, and one is from a super high-end restaurant that does street food during the summer. So it's cool because it's cheap, but it's still really good. It's called the Europea, and it is a poutine. So it's like handmade fries and way too heavy gravy on there and cheese and foie gras all over your poutine.
Wow.
So it's like the really like fancy version of the poutine. So that's from a taste perspective, that's the best, but that's not poutine. I believe that when you want to have a real one, it's go standard, no like sausages or bacon or ground meat or whatever. Don't do that. Just go for fries, the gravy, and the cheese. And there's 2 ones. One for the real taste. I would say it's called Poutine-Ville, or City of Poutine, or Town of Poutine, or Poutine Town in English. I think this is where you're gonna get the one that really tastes like amazing. But if you really want the experience, it's called La Banquise. La Banquise is a 24/7 restaurant that serves other stuff than poutine, but mainly poutine. And you're kind of not allowed to go there before 2 a.m. because it just gets better after 2 a.m. That's how things are. But this is where you have like 35 types of poutine, from like poutine with like Alfredo sauce and that kind of weird things. But if you go and you get the classic, you really get the experience. All the servers are hipsters from like an area in Montreal called Le Plateau, which is all the fancy people are living there. So it's really like a feeling that you don't get anywhere else in town. La Banquise, definitely highly recommend this.
You said they had varieties of poutine. Do
Yeah.
you have a favorite? Because like last year when my wife and I were out in Toronto for a few days, and we were, well, mostly in Niagara on the Lake,
Yeah.
we found poutine that it was like an ice wine gravy poutine, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't bad, actually. So you said there's a variety of them there. Is there one that's your favorite?
First, I want to clear something out. Poutine is not a Canadian thing. It's a Quebec thing. So what you had might have been good, but definitely not the real deal. Just so
Not
we're
authentic.
clear. I might have a couple of friends that will not agree with me, but hey, I stand by my Quebec. I would say that my favorite one is classic or classic and bacon. I'm a big bacon fan, but the gravy has to be a heavy dark brown gravy, not like something like it almost feels like it's juicy. No, it needs, like when you have like take your fork and you go into gravy, it needs to stick almost and then drip slowly and back into the poutine.
Like you can just stick the fry standing up in it, kind of thing.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is my number 1 too. So that's the place that we always go to when we go to Montreal. I always get like hot dog, bacon, and onions.
Yeah. It's classic. Hot dog. I don't know where this comes from, but definitely the mix hot dog, sausages, and poutine is something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, French cuisine is like super fancy, and everybody knows about like their amazing filet and all that kind of stuff. And in Quebec, we're known for our poutine.
I've had some of the best food of my life in Montreal.
Yeah,
Poutine's dirty, but I've had like some really great Lebanese food in like
Yeah.
the bottom of a building. That was like the sketchiest place ever, but it was one of the best meals I've ever had.
That's the best place. That's the best place. Best thing about Montreal. Montreal is such like a mix between America, the craziness of America, and the fanciness of Europe, if I can say. So when they meet together, like our Quebec cuisine, if we put poutine aside, is basically a local version of French cuisine. But that makes everything just like the way it's served and the way it's made. It just makes everything so amazing. It makes everything great, great, great. And yeah, I agree that we have some pretty famous restaurants here, and all the food is just amazing here. But I would also say the same thing about lots of places around the world. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of like U.S. food in general. There are some areas. New York is a great thing. When I was in Nashville, we had like all the southern stuff, which is amazing. But everywhere else, it always feels a little bit like, I don't know, generic. Except sometimes there's some spikes that are great. But yeah, Quebec or even Canada in general is pretty good on food.
Yeah, smoked meat sandwiches from Montreal.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about. Actually, let's go back. Favorite poutine, smoked meat poutine. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Bo, on that one. That's a nice pass right on the tape.
Yeah, and for people not from Montreal, it's pastrami, but smoked meat in Montreal. Rye bread, smoked meat.
Yeah.
So you love food. You also love beer. I do know that you go to Burlington, Vermont,
Yes.
when you can, and there's some really good beers there. And you said one of your favorite beers is a New England IPA. So let's kind of dig through that a bit and see what your favorite brewery is, both from Montreal and then also any brewery that has a New England IPA.
Yeah. So Montreal, there's a lot, and it's becoming a thing, and I guess that's something that happens all around the world. Even last week in Finland, we were hopping from one microbrewery to the next one. So it's becoming a world thing. But definitely my top beer in Quebec is from a brewery called Le Castor, or the Beaver, where they do those amazing, I would call them old school IPAs. Like it's more like 4, 5, 6 years old type of IPA, really clear, really, really crisp, a little bit fruity, not too much. Very, very bitter. Like you look like that when you drink it. That's my favorite one. Every single time I can have it. That's the beer that I had just before my wedding. Like my top number one beer. I wanted to have like one pint of that before my wedding. But then I met Burlington, Vermont. It's more than just Burlington. It's the Burlington area, which is even better than New York, because that's like an hour and 15 minutes away from home. And for me, when I go there, there's two I don't know if they still call it microbreweries. It's so huge. But there's a Burlington Beer Company that is in there. They have, I think, the best triple IPA that I've ever had, which is the Untangible Tide. An amazing beer. The beer is beautiful, just like the can is amazing. So that's one. And the other one is what's the name? Eddie Hopper. That's the name of the beer.
Eddie Topper?
Yeah, there you go. I don't remember what's the name of the brewery. It's the
from The Alchemist.
There you go, The Alchemist. I think it's probably I think the Eddie Topper is probably my favorite beer of all time. I'm a very IPA guy, so I don't like stouts or like brown beers or whatever. But when I hit on the right IPA, and I like, we never get the chance to taste those beers here in Canada. It's really hard to export from the US or import from Canada. So every single time I go to the US, I go through, no matter what, like even if I'm in New York, I'll just do and go around the lake and stop in Burlington and go to a beer store and buy as many beers as I can, which is exactly 17 cans. I cannot bring more than 17. That's what Canada allows you to import as a individual. So luckily I have my wife with me, so we can bring 2 times 17 cans.
There you go.
So Seb, speaking of consumption of liquids, you had mentioned that the best way to start your day was coffee, but not just coffee, right? You had said a lot of coffee.
Yeah. So as part of my role and working with a mainly European-based company, we have offices here in Montreal, but mainly European, especially all the software engineering happens in Europe. And leading that team, it means that I'm on the early shift, like really early shift. Like I could show you my phone. Actually, I might do that. Look at that. So this is my daily thing. If I find this, so these are the alarms that will happen in the morning.
4:45. That's my alarm. But then you have one at 5, 5:30, 6.
By that time, Dave's already woken up. He's walked 6 miles on the treadmill. He's gone shopping and he's already back home ready.
Gone shopping on Amazon or what? But yeah,
the number of times that I get a message from Dave at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., he just like couldn't sleep.
It happens far too often, unfortunately.
So 4:35, 5:30 a.m. usually. And I usually take my first meeting. So usually I just go out of bed, jump in the shower, and automatically jump into my first meeting. My first meeting is usually without coffee because it's too hard at like 5:30. It feels like it should not exist. 5:30 should not exist. Like that's how life should be. But then afterwards, which are usually back to back until 10, it's like a coffee or a coffee and a half or maybe 2 per meeting. Those meetings are like an hour long. So usually around 10, I had like 4, maybe 5 different coffees. Then I'm usually good for the rest of the day. But yeah, it's my way to wake up. I really love the taste of coffee. So for me, it's not just to stay awake. I really like that. I have a proper espresso machine here at home, so I usually do those. And yeah, I love like with my IPA addiction. You understand that I really love bitter stuff, so all my coffee is all fully black, and that's how I survive. I wouldn't say survive, but that's how I live my day every day until and I'm still a coder at heart. I don't code anymore that much, but I'm still a coder. And there is a time in the day, if I'm at the computer after 10 p.m., then the night shift just like kicks in. And now it's my good old days, like when I'm in my 20s, early 20s, when I used to like have like 2 or 3 Red Bulls a day because this was cool back then. And now I take a Red Bull at night, and I should not, but.
So if you drink lots of coffee, you love beer, do you drink lots of stouts too, or?
And absolutely not. That's the weird. That's the weird part of it. I really don't like. Well, I like my coffee black, and it needs to taste like super sharp, super crisp. I don't like to have like a smooshy, creamy type of beer that almost tastes like an old pot of coffee that you would have mixed with milk or something. Like I don't even put Baileys in my coffee or something like that. I don't like that. I need the real thing, and that's it.
Well, you might be drinking the wrong stouts if they all taste like old pots of coffee, but
I'll take you on that, and let's make sure that you show me a couple of great stouts. I'll be happy. Probably one of the best beer I had in my life was actually at Guinness when I was in Ireland and poured myself a Guinness. I don't like stouts, but this one was pretty awesome. So maybe I haven't had the right one. So
how long have you been drinking coffee, Seb? Because I'm wondering, with the amount of consumption, I didn't drink it much my whole life, and then I lost a bunch of weight, and I started drinking it to stay warm. And over the years, I've noticed that my tolerance has completely changed. When I first started drinking, I could have a pot before bed, wouldn't affect me at all. Have you noticed with that it's starting to affect you?
Yeah, now it's go Bo.
Before we get into this, I just want to say, David, they make these things called blankets, and you usually like wrap yourself around, like wrap them around you, and it keeps you warm.
Not at work. I'm not walking around work with a blanket around me. I just look crazy.
Well,
I see David's just pouring coffee on himself. It's like,
he's not
showering in it.
He's not drinking it. He's just pouring it over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't like the taste. I just like the way it warms me up.
I like how it smells.
Well, it was like comforting, right, too, at the same time.
But yeah, so I actually started to drink coffee. It's actually a weird story. When I used to be in college, I was not drinking coffee at all. I used to drink Red Bulls or that kind of not that good stuff. But and I had my first internship. I was like, I won't drink coffee. I will not drink coffee. Everybody drinks coffee around you. Like, hey, Seb, want to have a coffee? Want to come to the coffee machine with me? Want to go downstairs to the Starbucks, get a coffee? Like, oh my God, those seems like to be really great social moments to talk with people. I was like, yes, I'll come, but I have an amazing hot chocolate. And then I was like swapping it with hot chocolate all the time. And I was like, you know what? It's good, but it's not that good. Especially like those crappy hot chocolate, they really don't like taste good. So what happened is on my last day of my internship, I said, you know what, guys? I'll have a coffee with you. I should have never had said that, because that was the first of probably a million coffees afterwards. And yeah, so because of work, I started to use coffee to stay sharp in the afternoon.
I started drinking coffee when I was 14.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well,
in high school?
I wouldn't say it was really coffee. It was those cheap, like terrible cappuccinos you would get from like the big machine, because I didn't really like the taste of coffee, but those things didn't taste like coffee. They were so sweet. And so I started drinking those when I was 14 and did that for a while. And then I would say once I turned 18 or so, college, I became like just a standard coffee drinker. But I still do cream and sugar. I don't like black coffee, but
cream, don't do that.
Yeah. Well, cream and maple syrup. So
from
Canadian maple syrup?
Yeah, definitely.
Don't
even say it.
Don't insult me. So you've been doing you've been MVP for five years. You've been doing SharePoint for a long time. How did you get into it, and kind of what has that journey been like?
That's actually a funny story. When I do sessions, I always introduce myself, and actually you might share the slide from today, Dave, where I always use like a picture of myself, and now it looks like I have a chef hat on that picture. But anyway, and I always say,
hey, we will post that picture in the bottom right square here.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. I have saved it because Seb didn't have the chat, and so Chris had submitted it, and I sent it to Seb so he could see it. So yeah.
Yeah. And then afterwards, I saw it all over the place. It's the day of Chef Seb. I actually love cooking, so that's okay. But yeah, so I say that I was born in SharePoint. So in that first internship where I started drinking coffee, actually I can even say that probably SharePoint made me drink my first coffee. Yeah, pretty much. So
you probably wouldn't be the only person.
Oh no, definitely not. So I'm on that internship interview, and chat with my boss. An amazing boss I'll remember all my life. Like, he really made me part of who I am today from a professional perspective. And he's like, we're looking at starting a practice around that thing called SharePoint. We are in 2006, so like September-ish 2006, And he's like, yeah, we're starting that thing called SharePoint. Do you know anything about SharePoint? And as a guy that really wants to land an internship, I guess that's built on top of .NET Framework. Like, yeah, that's on top of .NET Framework. So I know SharePoint. It done. Like, is it like, actually the question I asked after, like, is that almost like .NET Nuke? Which was a CMS back then.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I guess. Okay. So I landed the job because I knew SharePoint. And the first day at work, like, hey, here's a book. It was a 2007 SharePoint. There was one book for both admin and dev of SharePoint back then, because it was not that big at the time. And it's like, can you read that? Cool. Spend the first week reading, and the next week, like, hey, here's an info path form. Can you help us, please? And I started my journey in building custom .NET code in an info path form for SharePoint 2007 beta. That's how I got into this. And then afterwards, everything else. But it's been a journey. So literally, never really did any other crazy technologies around the Microsoft stack and Azure, that kind of stuff, but always concentrated or focused around the SharePoint stuff. So that's how I started. And I'll always remember that I was the SharePoint expert because I said yes to a question in internship.
So you're very heavily involved with the community. You do lots of speaking engagements. You go to conferences. So kind of, can you talk about what the community means to you for SharePoint 365 and kind of how that's affected your career or just, your love for SharePoint?
It affected my love for SharePoint, or I don't know. But for sure, for me, community means family. That's one of the things that I kind of see when I go to an event. I feel like it's to see my second family or third family with like everyone I like and I love, and we just have a not just a bunch of fun around the tech, because it's fun to geek out. And I remember spending an hour at a SharePoint booth a couple of years ago and having a legit 1 hour long discussions around content types. Like that, how geeky is that, talking about content type IDs and the way they inherit from each other. Like, we literally had a geek out moment. But it's also about everything that happens outside of those geeky moments. Those geeky moments bring us together. Kind of, we can all find a common ground on a lot of the topics. Then afterwards, it's to be able to go and a good example is actually David. David, we know each other for maybe 2 years-ish, approximately. And we met for the first time in person. I don't exactly remember where, but it was like if the last time we chatted was like the day before, and we knew everything about each other because we know everything about each other because of what's happening online. It feels so weird when I talk with my non-geek friends that has nothing to do with IT. Like, wait, what? Why would you, like? But it's really that feeling of being part of that bigger family, and that's also what helped me getting inside the community. I remember I was, I don't know, like 19, 20, 21 years old, reading the blogs because there was absolutely no documentation back then, so everything was happening through blog posts. And you kind of read about those topics through, I wouldn't say your idols, but through people that you really like. Okay, you make a difference in my daily life. It's because of you I can have a job and ship my projects, because if it was not of you, I would still be really clueless about what's happening. I remember like reading the AC blog or Waldeck or Jeremy before he joined Microsoft, and I was like, oh my God, those are like like gods for SharePoint. And then a couple of years after, I'm at a bar ordering a beer and starting chatting out of nowhere with a guy that I thought that I knew, like, well, it was Waldeck next to me. I started chatting with Waldeck, and we just had an amazing conversation, and we already had that feeling of bonding just because we share the same passion. I knew him from his blog, he knew me from Twitter, and boom, connection made. Just go on, just chat and just have fun. So especially in IT communities where sometimes people are a little bit more introvert, I feel that this feeling of community is a way to get them to go out and start chatting with whoever is available, because I think that's one of the key of the community is everybody is really welcoming. Like, come in our circle and start chatting, have a beer, let's talk content types, or let's do whatever, and let's just have fun. And that makes like a great way of belonging to that bigger SharePoint community that we have. So it's for me, it really makes a ton of sense, and I don't see myself living without that community. Like, if I'm not in events for a long time, for 2-3 months, because I don't know, I want to slow down a little bit, I want to spend a little bit more time here in Montreal with the family, but then I have that excitement, that like, okay, I'm taking the plane, I'm going to this community event somewhere, and now it's like, again, seeing the family and just having fun. And also what I like is, if I need to have that community thing, you just have to go out, walk a couple of miles from home, and meet your local community, which we have a really strong local and MVP-led community here in Montreal.
Awesome. And your local user group is where you started speaking, right? I mean, you're well accomplished as a speaker. I think almost any event you've spoken at, so that's a huge accomplishment. But it's your user group that you started at.
I started, and you will, and especially you two guys being more on the dev side of things, my first speaking engagement was in my local communities in the Montreal user group, where I showcased how to build a jQuery weather web part. Nothing else than a weather web part as a session. That's like the most generic thing you can do, I think, in SharePoint. And that was a great session, actually. And we worked on that session for a long time with me and my colleague, because we like made it like CI/CD type of stuff back when these were really advanced topics. First one in French in Montreal was great, actually.
Yeah, it's like, I don't hate that topic. There's so many speakers out there, and I do it too, is that we do a session and then we overcomplicate things. We just add all of these things that we want to show, and like, it's really hard to follow for someone else. So something like a weather web part, yeah, it seems not super important to a standard enterprise, but when you present it, it puts together like, this is how we develop, and these are the things you can build. Like if you've ever seen AC talk, and he just has like an intro to SharePoint framework, his talks are so simplified that really someone who has very little experience can still understand.
Yeah,
this is how things get put together, right? So whether you're speaking on weather widgets or you're trying to build something super complex, I think someone gets value from it.
And it's, for me, and that's maybe a tip for any speaker, a session is not a show. It's not a way to show off. It's a way for people to engage with you and understand a specific topic. And it's really easy to go next level and to go crazy on any topic. But yeah, bringing it down to the basics is also really hard, especially when you know a lot. It feels like nobody will really care about it, and that's what I learned lately in one of my talk where I go around search, like basics of search, and people are like, "Oh my God, I didn't know all of this." I'm like, "Oh my God, I thought everybody knew about it," and it's not. So it's a very humbling experience to go back to the basics, find a way to talk about the basics, and get people involved in those basics. So yeah, definitely right, Bo. You're 100% right.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's we always have to remind ourselves of that, because I was doing a list formatting talk, and I do have an entry-level version of it, and I had done it in Twin Cities. It was the end of the day, and I thought, the end of the day at a SharePoint Saturday, no one will show up. It was a full room, almost 70 people, and everyone said it was fantastic. And I'm thinking, no one's going to show up. Who doesn't know about list formatting by now? Everybody knows about list formatting. Tons, though, like you said, don't, and they need to be exposed, and we can still help with that. So I agree.
Yeah, I think that's our role, actually.
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, from a community standpoint, if you want your community to be inclusive, don't be a community for experts.
Right.
Be a community for 101, 201, 301, 401, and crazy talks. I love to go to those crazy talks where no slide, just code, and like putting everything all together. You don't really see anything. That boom at the end, it's amazing. But also take one and just take someone by the hand to make them realize or code or their first web part, and then you might have just changed their life because now they might want to start doing stuff for SharePoint Online or for whatever else. And
you're empowering them to take it to the next step, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head too, is that it's sometimes more difficult to simplify your presentation, your actual talk, than it is to just do what you normally do. For some of us who are so close with the technology and we could do 300 level talks easy, right? But it's really harder to, how would I present this as a 100 level talk to make it understandable and yet convey, here's all the things we can do. You know, that is extremely challenging, which is why I love going to, like, even though I've been doing SharePoint for a long time, I'll bring up AC again. He's such a good trainer that his sessions are so clear and yet there's nothing overly complicated with them. So whether you're someone who does 300 level work or you're someone who's just entering in, you all get the benefit of, you know, watching or seeing what's being done. So yeah, it's very interesting.
And I've been also, and it's my bad, doing a lot of assumption. Someone getting in my room and they know about this and this and this and this. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And I think we have to make our sessions more inclusive to anybody that jumps into a session. So we make sure that everybody gets something out of that session. So it's important. That's kind of a learning that my last 3-4 years, as I really accelerated my number of speaking engagements in the last 3-4 years. And this is really something that I learned sometimes the hard way.
Yeah, and so,
but it makes me better, I think, today.
Yeah, I do fairly technical talks, and the advice I always give myself, but also others, is I do a presentation. Let's say that there are topics in it that are 300 level. I'm not going to put it at a 300 level talk. I'll do half the talk as like 100 level, and then the other half as 300 level, and call it a 200 level talk. So people in the room, if you're 100 level, you get something from it. If you're 300 level, you get something from it, and no one walks away going, I didn't learn anything, right? It's like there's some balance there where you kind of touch all parts of it without being overwhelming.
So Seb, one of the newer segments that we're doing on the show with some of our guests is called Rapid Fire and Fill in the Blank. So it's been kind of fun. We're just going to give you, for the rapid fire, we're going to give you 2 options, and you just kind of choose which you first comes to mind as your choice, right? And then fill in the blank is pretty obvious. You're going to fill in the blank. So you ready?
I hope so.
All right. Rapid fire. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Wine or beer?
Beer.
Treadmill or couch?
Treadmill on the couch.
Texting or talking?
Texting.
Cake or pie?
Cake.
Summer or winter?
Summer, 100%.
Ask permission or beg for forgiveness?
Beg for forgiveness. Please stop asking for permission.
More time or more money?
More time.
Okay. All right, now fill in the blank. If only one artist on your playlist, it would be?
Coldplay.
The best ice cream flavor is?
Chocolate dipped in chocolate.
The first topping other than cheese on a pizza should be?
Pepperoni.
If you could have one superpower, it would be?
Being anywhere at any time.
Teleportation.
Yeah.
That would be nice. I would appreciate that with motion.
Would save on flights.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. So Seb, as being an active member of the community, you no doubt have some things on the horizon that you're going to be speaking at. What are you excited about that's coming up for you on the speaking agenda?
Well, the first thing I'm really excited is not a speaking engagement, but it's the MVP Summit. To be able to see part of my friends in the community, being able, I love Seattle. I really love that city. I love the feeling, even though we're not exactly in Seattle, it's quite close. So I usually go there once or twice during my stay in Bellevue and Redmond. And then afterwards, it is a very busy spring. So we have our own Valo event. So we have our Valo North American Summit in Miami at the beginning of April. Then afterwards, there's the SharePoint Fest DC end of April, where I'll be giving way too many talks. We are having 4 sessions in 3 days in DC, which will be quite interesting. And then afterwards, it's how do we call it? It's the big show of the year, or one of the big shows of the year, which is SharePoint Conference. Use code Levert to save $50. But it's gonna be.
Sorry. I'm already using code Vlad, so.
Oh no! Don't use it. Don't use it. It's only $25 when you use Vlad. It's $50 when you use Levert. So.
Rumor mill.
But honestly, I think for 2 reasons. First, it's to have all the entire SharePoint community. This year will be a very special year. Last week, Jeff Deeper was announced as the head of Teams now, plus SharePoint plus OneDrive. I think we're going to see a lot of that at SPC. So I would expect a lot of big announcement, like collaboration opportunities with those 2 products. So for me, definitely there, I'm going to have I think a cool session, a provisioning session on site scripts and site designs and PNP stuff and logic apps and these kind of things. And then afterwards, it's the summer, so we're gonna try to keep it low profile a little bit. We're going for some vacation also at the same time. So those are my next top talks that are happening in the next couple of months.
Last question we always ask is, what's the best icebreaker if someone is to go to one of your events that you're speaking at that you just talked about? If they come up to you after your session or see you at the SharePoint, what's the best icebreaker?
Just offer me an IPA and I'm yours for the rest of the night. Or if you know, you know, but talk to me about the Angular wrap, and we might have a fun time for the evening. I used to do a wrap in one of my sessions, and that brought me to a level of fame that I was not expecting. And I always like when people are coming to me and start like literally singing the Angular rap, which is weird, but at the same time, I think it's a great icebreaker. Or just come and say bonjour or salut in French, and you're gonna be my best friend for that night.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
It was fun. It was really fun, by the way.
Thanks for joining us.